Chief Justice Raymond Zondo will preside over the swearing-in ceremony of the newly appointed members of the National Executive. And of course, this follows President Cyril Ramaphosa's cabinet reshuffle last night. We get into conversation with Songezo Zibi, Rivonia Circle chairman, I beg your pardon, on the opinion piece that he has written since that announcement. Thank you very much, Mr. Zibi, for your time this afternoon. You proffer in your opinion piece that this cabinet reshuffle demonstrated that there may no longer be a center that holds the country together. How so?
Well, it's not good afternoon to you and to your listeners. It's not so much about the individuals in the cabinet. So the context is this: the country is in crisis, and equally politically, the ANC is in crisis. Poll after poll that we've seen, and we've conducted some ourselves, it appears certain that the ANC will achieve less than 50% of the vote next year, which means we go into coalitions. In that state of crisis, you would expect profound changes in the cabinet. And one of the points I make in the article to which you referred in your intro is that I think the ANC understands this very well, but there is nothing from the well from which it draws people for cabinet. And therefore, it has not been able to make the kind of changes that a party in crisis, for a country in crisis, should be able to make. They've reshuffled some decks around, but largely retained the same people and changed some portfolios. And the new people that have come in are completely unremarkable.
To your point, you further point out that the party, like you say, has moved around some decidedly questionable characters, such as?
Well, Zibi was battling to explain why he got a loan that he appeared to never intend to pay back, which in a different context would be called a bribe. David Mahlobo was struggling to answer questions relating to his own conduct at the Zondo Commission, where the Mandela similarly. And I also make the point that historically the president has consulted the Secretary General when they are about to make cabinet changes. And in this instance, he had to consult Fikile Mbalula, who himself is not fit to be in cabinet. And so the point I'm making about the center that you refer to is that if the ANC is not there, as it looks like the ANC will not be there, to hold different stakeholders in society together in order to achieve national policy and political consensus, we are facing a future where there could be complete disintegration of consensus, because the opposition parties, as we have seen in the Johannesburg Metro and in Tshwane, aren't themselves able to hold a coalition together. And if they can't, it means they can't hold the rest of society together.
We'll get into the disintegration of the consensus and painting possible scenarios of the future in a few moments. But here's something that caught my attention. You suggest there's something more profound about the excitement generated by an event like this, and that is how the elites and pundits continue to be duped by the ANC's tendency to individualize failure so that it cannot be corporately held accountable. You say this again later on in the opinion piece, and you say it is the elites who control powerful stakeholder blocks who may later lament not recognizing this moment for what it is. Who are these elites and the pundits and the powerful stakeholder blocks?
So the elites in South African society, contrary to popular belief, are not just in business, but of course there is business. They are the business organizations. These are the people that have a voice that the government, the president, the ANC, and the government listen to when they have an issue to discuss, when they raise issues about an obstacle, or when whose support is needed for policy to go forward. There is the trade union movement. The elite, the leadership of the trade union movement are very powerful players in the ANC alliance. Let us assume that the ANC will not be in power next year. Who do they speak to? Because their alliance with the ANC becomes immaterial for the purposes of influencing government decisions. You then get civil society, you get religious organizations and so on. All of these people for 30 years have been convened by the ANC. When it is not there, who are they going to coalesce around?
And then you speak of the country being at a critical tipping point. You characterize the ascension of Paul Mashatile and now confirmation that he has been appointed Deputy President of the Republic as one scandal and political mistake by Ramaphosa away from ascending to the presidency. And if that comes to pass, two things will happen, which are?
So the two things that will happen is that the ANC will get far below 40%, which means it will need more than one or two smaller political parties to whom they can throw a cabinet bone to get over the line. And that means they have to choose between the EFF and the Democratic Alliance. Now, as Fikile Mbalula said this past week, they will not go to the right of themselves, they'll go to the left, which means the economic freedom fighters. The reality is that even though the president is compromised by Pala and also his indecisiveness and failure of leadership, without him, the ANC as an electoral force is completely spent. Unfortunately for them, that is a situation that we're facing. That forces them to go into alliances. And it is in this context that Fikile Mbalula did not dismiss the questions about going into a coalition, because he knows, he's seen the polling.
You also suggest that it's almost a foregone conclusion that the ANC will not enjoy an outright majority come the 2024 national elections, but that there will be a coalition. It's just not certain of its composition and what it will look like, that coalition.
No, that's what we have to find out. And one of the things that we continue to speak about in our own stakeholder consultations that in the Rise campaign is precisely to make people answer the question of what if. Because nobody wants to talk about it. Also, a lot of stakeholders don't want to talk about it. The ANC knows it will get less than 50%, and everybody knows. The question is, who holds society together? And if nobody holds society together, you've got a cross-contestation between stakeholders, not just between stakeholders and the government and the ANC, but contestation between different stakeholders. And the country is in crisis. It needs decisive action around load shedding, around the economy, around crime and organized crime, and so on. And if we cannot have a consensus around what to do to make big changes in the country, we will descend further into chaos.
You also conclude the article by saying that you and I are not victims. There is something that we can do, no?
No, absolutely, we're not. I think the big thing that South Africans have to realize is that as an electoral and a political force, the ANC really truly is gone. It is never going to regain the kind of strength that it had. The question we have to answer is what? And I think the place to start, such as we're doing, is to build that coalition, that national consensus, without necessarily involving the ANC, so that if the political actors on their own are not able to hold society together, we've established a pattern and regularity of dialogue and agreement on the major issues between the same stakeholders who used to rely on the ANC government to convene them.
Thank you very much to the chairman of the Rivonia Circle, Songezo Zibi.